Hello again, Star Trek fandom. I'm your host, Dustin Wing. Kicking us off at 672, we have 3 Men and a Baby. Or Friday's Child. We jump into a briefing on a pre-warp planet they're about to visit that apparently McCoy was stationed on in the past. When they beam down, the red shirt in the party immediately dies when he draws his weapon after finding a Klingon on the planet, trying to out-negotiate the Federation. When Kirk tries to prove the worth of the Federation to these people, a Klingon ship plays cat and mouse with the Enterprise, with Scotty in command, and lures it out of orbit. The big three end up escaping the tribe with a pregnant former wife of a ruler that's killed in a completely out-of-nowhere random fight. She goes into labor after smacking McCoy a few times, and McCoy smacks her back. Kirk and Spock try to stop the warriors of the tribe from following them through a rock canyon, and in a scene I'm going to do the first in a new series of videos called All Phi No Psi about, I'm going to tell you why my suspension of disbelief on Spock bringing a rock slide down on the tribe due to a sympathetic vibration isn't possible. Anyway, in the end, the new leader of the tribe sacrifices himself for no good reason in a battle with the Klingon, and Kirk and Spock are master archers, and really the plot just doesn't come together very well if you try to explain it. There's a lot going on in this episode, including maybe the worst male clothing choices of all time in Trek history, and Kirk admitting he's willing to kill simply for the sake of revenge, but nothing about the plot really gels. It's a series of scenes that on their own work okay, but have no cohesive element other than the Federation-Klingon Cold War going on in this time period. Crying out in the dark is number 671. Darwin's Theory of Prime Directive. Or Pen Pals. The Enterprise is studying a region of space where planets and stars live fast and die hard. Wesley is given command of a mineral survey, which is about as exciting as a trip to Pittsburgh, but he does a good job with his first command. Data hears a faint communication from a pre-warp society little girl whose planet is being ripped apart like the others in the system. Picard orders Data to cease communication, but when he doesn't, even Picard says screw the Prime Directive by the end and helps save the little girl's planet. And then orders Pulaski to lobotomize her and return her to the scorched planet her family may or may not have survived the catastrophe on. This is the first time Picard orders Earl Grey tea hot, and that's the best part of the episode. This one is another absolute mess of a plot that tries really hard to say something. Being inspired at number 670, Mrs. Troy gets preggers. Or the Muse. Lwaxana Troi turns up in Odo's office, married, pregnant, and on the run from her ultra-conservative husband, who wants to have their child raised by only men. Odo gives her shelter and protection, and when her current husband shows up, he marries her, which annuls her previous marriage, and she goes back to Betazed and presumably gets a divorce eventually. Meanwhile, in the other plot going on, Jake Sisko is preyed upon by a much older woman that gives him the ability to quickly come up with ideas for his book, at the expense of stealing his neural energy before Ben finds out and chases her off the station. In Majel's final on-screen appearance in Trek, the heart-to-heart talks and marriage of her and Odo is one of the best Lwaxana Troi moments in all of Trek, and for once actually saves the episode from its other terrible plot. Does anyone else think Jake has mommy issues since he consistently falls for older women? On the other side of that, did Lwaxana have daddy issues since she always falls for strong, overly conservative men? Or do they both just have a type? The longtime Trek director of this episode, David Livingston, once said he wished this episode had never been produced. Though interestingly enough, Majel was one of the writers of this one, and maybe that's why it's one of the best appearances of Lwaxana Troi. When Onaya the Muse lists off the people in the galaxy she's given inspiration to, she says the name Tarbell, which was a pseudonym used by Gene Roddenberry. So they're saying this woman inspired Star Trek. Try not to think about that logic loop too long. Here at number 669, The Voyager Tragedy, or Muse. We're dropped into a classic Greek tragedy bit of theater being played out on a pre-warp alien world about the crew of Voyager. Turns out B'Elanna crashed the Delta Flyer, Harry Kim is nowhere to be found, and a playwright has used the ship's logs while B'Elanna was unconscious as material for his latest bits of theatrics. When she wakes up, she tricks him into untying her and she chases him off with a phaser. She tries to repair the Delta Flyer with little success until the playwright comes back and she gives him some more story material in exchange for him hunting down some dilithium for her. Turns out Harry was in an escape pod that crashed 100 kilometers away and he walked all that way to the crash site. We get another use of the Tuvok is ill trope just to get him some screen time and a hilarious moment where he falls asleep while in command of the bridge. In the end, B'Elanna inserts herself into the play and beams up in a dramatic fashion to end it, and breaks the heck out of the Prime Directive. The cold close with her beaming out is the best part of the episode. I think it might have been interesting to find out what happened to Harry during his 100-kilometer pitfall trek. It's a well-thought-out episode and has a little character development for B'Elanna, but doesn't do much to further the Voyager as a whole. Making little sense whatsoever is number 668. Debauchery. Because. Or Return of the Archons. Sulu and a random crew member dressed in 1700s colonial attire are being chased through the streets of a random planet. Sulu calls for beam out, but not before the crewman runs away, and Sulu is zapped with a staff weapon and starts babbling about Landru in the transporter room. When Kirk and company beam down to find their lost crewmate, they find themselves in the middle of some kind of festival that happens for 12 hours, full of random pillaging and debauchery that makes absolutely zero sense. At the end of the 12 hours, the people go back to normal fancy-free folk. Turns out they follow the will of a sentient computer named Landru, who thousands of years ago was a real person that transformed themselves into a computer, and in the end, Kirk uses his talk computer to death skill to defuse the situation. This episode is just a mess of mismatched writing. Being terminally diagnosed at number 667 is TLDR, or For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. We start with a somber moment of McCoy letting Kirk know he's been diagnosed with a terminal incurable illness and has a year less to live. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is tracking a potentially man-made asteroid that will hit an inhabited planet within a few months. When Kirk and a landing party beam into it, they find a race of people that think they're on a real planet and have no idea they're really on an asteroid ship. After they're taken prisoner briefly, McCoy falls in love with the leader of these people and decides to stay, knowing that it will likely end in dying on the asteroid in a few months, but with less than a year to live, he has nothing to lose, and basically resigns his commission to Starfleet. Kirk defies orders to move on to another mission, finds the controls for the asteroid ship, and changes its course. McCoy is treated by these people and with no more fear of death goes back to the ship. This one has a cute plot and some really nice character development for McCoy, but it suffers badly from 1960s TV syndrome, dragging on and on. The premise could have been better in a short trek. Getting inked at 666, we have Native American hodgepodge, or tattoo. We start with Chakotay having a flashback to a trip he took with his father to visit a tribe in Earth's rainforest they are descended from, and we get to see the origins of his facial tattoo. In need of a certain mineral, Voyager finds a planet that has it, but they have trouble either beaming down or getting a shuttle to set down. Eventually, they meet a group of aliens that bear the same tattoo as Chakotay, and they tell him the story of how their people have taken generation ships to Earth in the past and gave them some kind of genetic memory as a gift. After working out some of their misconceptions, they allow the crew to mine some of the mineral they need. So, how many races from the far-flung parts of the Delta Quadrant have made trips to Earth's past for whatever reason? This one's a hokey, unbelievable mess. The best part is the cute story about father and son misunderstanding and bonding, but it stretches the suspension of disbelief to a near breaking point. Trying to reach puberty is number 665. Kes plus Beatles equals baby, or Elogium. Opening into my favorite thing in all of Voyager is Neelix being a jealous grooming creeper to the oh-so-innocent Kes. Voyager encounters a species of small space-dwelling organisms that fart to get where they're going, and when they go in for a closer look, they get caught in the swarm and carried along with them. Their proximity to the creatures causes Cass to go into premature puberty, and if she doesn't become pregnant now, she may never be able to. When Voyager tricks the creatures into leaving them alone, Cass returns to normal. There's a lot of back and forth in the questions of becoming a parent. The best part of the episode is Tuvok teaching Neelix that kids as a whole are mostly the same, and you should have the same things to teach a girl as a boy.
Computer.
That program is available.
Thanks, Majel. Majel. Thanks, Majel. Majel.
I'm pregnant.
Thanks, Majel.
I was practically a prisoner in my own house.
Majel.
I would love to.
Thanks, Majel.
These are your quarters, aren't they?
Thanks, Majel.
I'm not going to throw myself at you if you say yes.
Thanks, Majel.
I haven't had so much fun in months.
Majel.
We're getting married?
Thanks, Majel.
I give myself to you.
Majel.
I'm going home.
Thanks, Majel.
Type of mount, Andorian Zabathu, Klingon Sark.
Majel.
Captain Picard is on holodeck 3.
Thanks, Majel.
Isolating frequency.
Thanks, Majel.
Unable to complete transmission.
Thanks, Majel.
I have called the captain and I'll wait until he comes.
Majel.
Please, give yourself every minute.
Thanks, Majel.
Warning, approach vector is too steep.
Majel.
Insufficient power.
Thanks, Majel.
The subspace transmitter is online.
Majel.
The transporter is online.
Thanks, Majel.
Satire in Trek! Satire in Trek!
Our inability to reach the landing party is strange, and I am concerned.
I don't know what to do. I'm so startled.
He has brought a child onto my ship and on my bridge. Children are not allowed on the bridge.
Sir, my son is not on the bridge. He merely accompanied me on the turbo lift.
There's an old saying on Earth, Mr. Sulu. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
I know this saying. It was invented in Russia.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. You fool me, we can't get fooled again.
I had to stop her from screaming.
Isn't it beautiful?
I doubt the captain would think so if she found it crawling around in her salad.
You want to see the most beautiful thing I've ever filmed?
Shining Voyager, far from home.
Strong Belana Torres and young Harry Kim speed away from Voyager on the Delta Flyer.
Hail King Joffrey! Hail Queen Marjorie!
I'll drink a toast to my new queen, for there is no one fairer. Come for the festival, eh, ya?
Yes.
Got a place to sleep it off yet?
Nice night for a walk, eh?
Nice night for a walk.
Wash day tomorrow. Nothing clean, right?
Nothing clean, right?
Do you ask a question?
Hey, don't make me paradox you into destroying yourself.
For the world is hollow, and I
Touch the sky.